Hey guys, and welcome to Phlearn. My name is Aaron Nace. You can find me on Twitter at AKNacer. Today is a real cool episode. I'm going to show you guys what's hidden inside of your exposures. Pictures that you've taken and information that's in there that you had no idea was even in there. And I'm going to show you guys how to work with it to make your images even cooler. So the image we're going to be working on today is this image by Scott. It's a really great image. We've got a sunset, we've got a great model with a really sexy SS, and we've got some side lighting here. Now, just to show you guys kind of what's going on here, let's go into my Finder window, and I'm going to show you guys this image by Scott here, downloaded from the internet. It's 74 kilobytes, and it's 850 pixels by 569. So this has been super reduced down to like a very small image. This is a web image. This is not the original raw image that comes out of your camera. There's almost no information in this file, and I'm still going to be able to pull a lot of information out of it. So if I can do this with a 74 kilobyte JPEG image that was uploaded to a website that I downloaded off of it, then you're gonna be able to do a lot more when it comes to actually working with your raw file. So we'll show you guys what we're gonna do, and let's go ahead and get into it. So the things that I kind of want to focus on today are just kind of bringing out some of the natural areas of exposure and then pushing some areas back. This sky, I think there's a lot of detail here, and I would like to see it come back. So this is, again, it's just a very small JPEG, but I'm pretty sure we can get some detail out of the sky. Now we do have like a ring of desaturation here, and that's because of a lens flare that we've got, just a little bit of a flare of light, and it's probably coming from back here. You can see it here as well. Just a bit of a flare. And then we have this area on the ground, which is just a little bit too light. So eventually what we want to do is we want to focus all of our looks, the people who are looking at this image, right here at our wonderful subject. And so what we need to do is we need to bring the sky down in brightness, we need to bring this down in brightness, we need to bring this up in brightness and exposure, and then work on some color corrections. And we can do this all with a super small JPEG image. So let's go ahead and get into it. It's going to be really cool. First thing I want to do, let's grab a curves adjustment layer. And I'm going to click right here in the middle and just drag way down, right about there. You can just keep on going. You can always change this at a later date. It's not that big of a deal. Next, what I'm going to do is here on my layer mask, I'm going to go to Image and Apply Image. And this is going to put a snapshot of my image on a layer mask. And it's going to only allow this layer to be visible where the underlying layer is light. So if the area is light underneath, it's going to make it darker, because that's what we just did with our curves. We made things darker. Okay, so we'll go to Image, here to Apply Image. There we go, and these are the settings you're going to want here. Merged, RGB, multiply, opacity 100, and click preview on and off so you can see, yep, that's what we want to do, and hit OK. There we go. Let's just look at this before and after real quick. So you can see all that detail that we were able to recover from our sky. Really nice. Okay, now there are a couple things, like I actually want that highlight back on my car. So you can always use a layer mask. What I would recommend doing is, because our layer mask looks like this, it's a very detailed, nice layer mask. You can either paint directly on your layer mask just by painting with black. There we go, right on the layer mask there. Or you can put that layer into a group and then put the layer mask there. So there we can see we've darkening our sky, but our exposure on our car is still nice and bright. Let's just do it again to see what we can do. I'm going to grab a curves adjustment layer. I just like pushing things over and over again. We're going to make it a little bit lower again, and I'm going to do the same thing, Image and down to Apply Image. And there we go. We're going to hit OK. So let's see. We were able to take it down even more this go round. So we'll just use the same technique here. Paint black on the layer mask there. Let a little bit of light shine through on our face. And really quickly, look at all that information we were able to get back from our sky. And this isn't a very compressed JPEG, guys. So if I can do this with a JPEG this small, trust me, you can do it with a raw file that you've taken straight out of camera. So that's already quite a bit that we have back. Now, I do want to work on this down here. We're going to change our exposure right down here because it's kind of drawing our eye to the bottom left side of this image. We don't really want that. We want our eye looking right here at our subject. So the next thing I'm going to do is grab a curves adjustment layer, and we're going to click here and just drag it right down. That looks pretty good. Okay, let's hit Command I on this layer mask, and now I'm going to use my brush tool. We're going to choose a very soft round brush. You can just right click here and choose your hardness at 0, and then choose a really large size. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to choose to paint with white on my layer mask, and I'm going to choose a low flow, and this is going to allow me to just build this effect up. So I'm going to hit Shift and the number 1. I'm just going to give it 10% flow. All right, all I have to do now is basically just paint white, and as I do, this area is going to get a little bit darker. Now, you're probably noticing at the same time that my color is a little bit off. And this is for a pretty good reason. It is because anytime you change your exposure in Photoshop, it's going to change the saturation, and sometimes you even get hue shifts. And the reason is because this is basically like if something is properly exposed, it's going to be plenty saturated. If it's over or underexposed, it's going to have less saturation. So what it's doing now is it's changing the exposure, but it's keeping the saturation from before. So what we get is an image, it's darker like we want it to, but it's too saturated. So, sorry, it kept the saturation from the proper exposure. Now it's darker, but we need to get that saturation correct. So all I have to do there is just grab an adjustment layer. We'll go to Hue Saturation, okay? And now I want to clip this to my curves layer. I want to make sure this Hue Saturation layer is only visible where I just made that curves adjustment layer to make things darker. So we're going to right click here, and I'm going to go to Create a Clipping Mask. And this Hue Saturation layer is now only visible where this curves layer is. Cool. So let's just double click on this Hue Saturation layer, and I'm going to lower our saturation until we get something that actually starts to look good. There we go. And we can see what a difference that made. So turning this off and on. Now, with that just a little bit more clear, I'm able to go in here on my layer mask and just paint a little bit better detail, making sure I just blend in where it needs to be light and where it needs to be dark, etc., etc., etc. There we go. And there we have a pretty nice fade. Let's just lower our opacity just a little bit. So we can see I didn't spend a ton of time on that, but let's just group those two together. We'll group these two background. So there's our ground. Already we fixed some of the flare and the color. Maybe we made this a little bit too desaturated. Let's bring the saturation up just a tad. There we go. Okay, so there's our ground, and here's our sky. Pretty cool. So we've already gone from this to that, and we can all agree that we're looking more at our subject now, and that's basically the idea, right? We're taking a picture of a person sitting on a car. We don't need our attention staring at the ground. Like we just don't need that. All right, I do this all the time, by the way. Most of my photos look like this straight out of camera, so it's not like you're doing anything wrong straight out of camera. It's just, this is just gonna help it out. That's why I got good at Photoshop, because I'm not that good of a photographer, so it's just like, oh, cool, I can make up for it. So all we need to do now, I'm just going to warm it up a little bit and bring some of this light to our subject. So what we're going to do, I'm going to grab another curves adjustment layer. Okay, I'm going to grab our RGB, we're going to bring that up a little bit brighter, just like this. Put some red in there as well, and take out some blue. And this is just going to give me a little bit more of that yellow tone. All right, now that looks really good. Now I'm going to hit Command I on that layer mask, and I'm going to paint this white here where our subject is. There we go. So I'm just got a regular brush here. Just where our subject is, maybe some fog in the background there, some stuff like that. But being relatively selective about where this gets to go. Okay, there we go. So we can see like a little bit of a color shift there is helping out. Now, I went with the warm, like the yellow and the orange, sorry, the yellow and red mixed together makes an orange, which makes sense. It's at sunset here. Let's see if I did the opposite. If I were to grab curves adjustment layer, make this a little bit brighter, and then I were to go like put some green in there and then some blue in there, okay, and then I use the same layer mask, there we go. We can see that's a completely different effect, and it looks horrible, duh, because I just imitated daylight, but it's not daylight, it's sunset. So make sure when you're choosing your colors, choose the colors that actually, there's the same layer mask, just this one's blue, this one's yellow. So just make sure that it actually does fit with the image. Now I'm going to give this a little bit more of a blur, so we're going to go to a Gaussian blur right there on that layer mask, and the reason is I just don't want it to be too well defined. We want just like a nice big bit of blur. Okay, so leave out the cool colors if you're working warm and at sunset. That's a big one that's going to help you guys on your way. And this already looks really, really nice. So the last things that I would do to this, we've already fixed our exposure. And so from this, where we thought we had almost no information here, and this is all light, and we have this desaturated image, we've already made it to this in a very short amount of time using a very small JPEG. All right, the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to go to our levels adjustment layer, and I think I'm just going to go to our red channel. We'll pull some reds up here into our shadows, pull some yellows into our highlights, There we go. So we get like a nice warm sepia type look. It's way too saturated. So again, we're going to go to hue saturation, and I'm just going to lower that saturation right down. There we go. And that gives us kind of like this nice warm look. Again, we're choosing warm here for a pretty good reason. It's like a warm sunset image. We want it to look a little bit on the warm side. And that's pretty much it. You guys could go in here and do more, more with a vignette or whatever you want, but basically the whole goal here is to be able to bring out all that wonderful detail in the sky, kind of knock down some of the detail in the ground, and draw your focus directly to our subject. So all we have to do now is look at the before and after. And if you guys ever want to do this, just hold Alt-Option and click on the eyeball on your background layer. So Alt-Option, there's the before and the after. It really didn't take a ton of time, and we were able to get a lot of great information and exposure right there from this tiny JPEG. Awesome. So if I'm able to do this, you can do it with anything you want. Thank you so much for watching Phlearn, guys. That's the end of this episode. If it helped you, please leave your image in a comment down below. Before and afters are my favorite. They're the best, and I will thumbs them up. Thanks again, and I'll Phlearn you later. Bye, guys. Blooper! That's very nice. I'm being scratched by a stick right now. For more information on this episode, go to Phlearn.com. While you're there, be sure to check out our pro tutorials. These are the most in-depth Photoshop tutorials available on the internet. If you want one for free, just sign up for our newsletter following the link right down below, and it'll be delivered to you instantly. We also feature exclusive interviews, written contents, inspiration from people like you, as well as professional photographers, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel.